Assalamu alaikum. Imam Mark here from Middle Ground, and just sharing a quick reflection. Last week in the khutbah, one of the points that I had talked about was trying to encourage our community to think in ways in which we can not just simply follow the leader with the dominant culture. And, you don't always have time, in the khutbah to go more in depth into things. But I wanted to talk about some of the, I was listening to Gangstar the other day. So there's this term that Guru uses called Tricknology. And there is a certain tricknology or psychology mental game that is enacted upon not just Muslims in America, but I'm talking about our community, but really anybody kind of coming out of that, not just post-colonial experience, but particularly with peoples who may have, or maybe still do in some way, represent a civilizational challenge to the West. And one of the concerns that I have about our community, where we're at right now with our mental health headspace, is there is sometimes a want or desire to look towards the West. I mean, to look towards the Muslim world, so to speak, right? And in a reactionary way, some of us, may look towards the Muslim world for all of the right answers, and don't get me wrong, I don't want anybody here to trip. It's not that I don't believe that our brothers and sisters in the Muslim world don't have, maybe some answers, or not to say that aren't doing things correctly, right? But I think because of our unique position in America, where certain forces are being acted upon us, and we're some perhaps more perceived than real, but either way, perceptions do matter. We feel like we have this force being acted upon us to sort of like choose between who is more civilizationally correct, right? The Muslim world or America, the Muslim world or the West. And the real issue with this hot potato or caught in between isn't only just the romantic or the nostalgic ruminations of whatever the so-called Muslim world may have, or the overly indulgent assumption that everything here is good or correct, or from a civilizational point of view, that the West has everything figured out. Is that instead of, we're caught always between looking at one of these two, and we don't really look at the Book of Allah. We don't really look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a legitimate source of inspiration, but also as a pragmatic source of problem solving, and as maybe I don't know what other, maybe as a way of also some kind of methodology of how to contribute to the society that we live in. But I want to go back again in that, we're caught between, we must choose one of the other, because the presumption is one of these must be correct, right? It's like a true or false. There's no multiple choice. And of course, right, the West is going to advocate for them having all the answers. Uh, and then, in light of the way the Muslim world is portrayed, not just only, on the news, but in art and, in all these different ways. I was watching The Man Who Knew Too Much the other day, the 1956 Alfred Hitchcock film, which is actually a remake of another version of the film. But anyway, in the very beginning, right, it's like, Stewart and Doris Day, right? They're traveling on vacation, and they're in Morocco, right? And just the way throughout the film that, a significant chunk of the film is filmed, or at least supposedly taking place in Morocco, and it's just bad on every way, in terms of being like a caricature, insulting, you can go and look at my Instagram feed from a few days ago and you can see some of the humorous clips that I uploaded. But the point is, it's very difficult if we're going to be put into this binary of either, one or the other, that particularly in the way that the Muslim world is portrayed, a lot of Muslims in America, quite frankly, are going to be hard pressed to identify with that, or they probably will do so in a reactionary kind of way, where, the reflex will be everything there is better and everything here is bad, or everything there is inherently good, but it's bad due to circumstance, and everything here is inherently bad, right? And that being caught between this really demonstrates, too, how little as a community we even engage what we can supposedly what we consider to be, sacred, timeless, true. And that's why I think, shifting the focus in the community on, becoming literate, with Islam, but to the point of wherever that we're going to be, that we can, we can really and truthfully contribute something meaningful to wherever we are, but also not get caught up in the hypnosis, right, of, I think I still have his book, what is it, occidentosis, right, or, West toxification. And I do believe these are real challenges for our community to, one, also return to a spirit of not just simply believing in the truthfulness of Islam or the truth of the Quran, but also believing in it along with having a sort of practical spirituality, right? Not the, group dicker beating a tambourine, tabernacle, whatever, some stuff that I see, but also problem solvers, right? Re-engaging the Quran, re-engaging the life of the Prophet ﷺ to return to a spirit of problem solvers. And that will require the mental space to pursue one's genius. And so I come back again to Brian Eno's quote, who's, if you don't know, a very famous British musician who pioneered a lot of electronic music, and he coined this term called scenius, right? Related to the word scene, but also a play on the rhyme of genius, right? And he said where the genius is usually reflected in an individual, right? But it comes out of a community, and I would really love for us to make that return to a community spirit of genius that allows for the contribution of more than just imams and scholars. I mean, we have our place. I'm not quite ready to give up my job yet, but at the same time, we don't have answers for everything, and some things are just either above or outside of our skill set. But I believe the way to get there is, hopefully having some conversations and reminding ourselves that we have to be careful of the tricknology of choosing one of the other and going back towards a reflex, a desire, a discipline of looking to the Book of Allah as the truth, not necessarily looking for it in manifestations in His creation, in terms of what men do, right? So anyway, some more thoughts to chew on. Imam Mark signing off. Assalamu alaikum.